The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again.
Billy, I got to ask you another tough question. And a lot of these tough questions come from two places. The God honest truth. Number one, I was where you're at. And number two, you have nobody. And TNA has nobody in their corner rooting for them more than me. And I believe wholeheartedly you are the guy because of your entertainment background. So that is why I'm asking some of these tough questions, because I foresee things based on history. Okay? Now, listen, Billy, I'm not going to hide behind anything and say, TNA management. TNA management is Dixie Carter, okay? When you look at TNA, as a whole, Billy, as a company that's been in the wrestling for 12 years, you got to look at a couple of things, Billy. You got to look at some pretty successful people at one time or another. A lot of successful people have come and gone through those doors. And you can go to Jeff Jarrett, you can go to Vince Russo, you can go to Bischoff, you can go to Hogan, you can go to Pritchard. A lot of people that accomplish something in the wrestling business pass through the doors at TNA. Billy, I'm going to toot my own horn here for a second, because in 2010, there was a show the day after Bound for Glory where for the first time, Billy, we reached over 2 million people at TNA. 2010. And Billy, I'll tell you right now, and this is when I knew my days in TNA were numbered. I'll be honest with you. That show, Billy, was primarily a talking, entertaining show. The numbers came in 2 million people, the highest audience we had ever gotten on Spike. And despite that, the Spike executives got up on their chairs and were screaming that the show needed more wrestling. Despite the 2 million people. At that point, I knew I was done. I knew Vince Russo can't do what he does here and be successful. Now, Billy, one of my opinion, one of Dixie's shortcomings is twofold. Number one, she's always listening to the last person in her ear. And number two, she wants things to change quickly. And if she doesn't see a ratings change in a very small window, it's going to be on to the next thing and the next guy. I experienced that for 12 years, and I know better than anybody. You don't increase ratings overnight. You don't grow audience overnight. That takes months and years of consistent programming. You lose that consistency when you keep changing hands because you're not getting the results you want in 3 months. So you're spiting yourself, but you keep repeating the same mistake over and over. Billy, how do you get past all those pitfalls and all those mistakes that might have been made in the past to give yourself the time that you're going to need to turn TNA around and make it successful?
Well, I would answer this slightly differently than the question you're asking, and it's not to duck the question. I think that at the end of the day, and again, I'm going to make this about me. It's about me for 1 second. I run Smashing Pumpkins World. It's my franchise. It's my world. And right or wrong, I have my own reasons for the way I run it. So when I look at Dixie, the woman, the business person, the mother, the friend, I want to understand how she wants her company run. If I'm an employee, that's my number one responsibility. So beyond that then is, can I do the best by that particular vision? And where I feel I've made inroads in that, I found her very responsive. If I disagree with her, which I do often, I will tell her. And I feel I have the credibility and enough of a relationship with her that she'll listen. If she wants to go in another direction, That's her call, because only she knows all the, where all the pieces are. I don't know all the business deals. I don't know the pressures. I don't know everything that goes on within the family business. So that's all I can do. I've always worked in entertainment business, whatever you want to call it, creative endeavors, from this standpoint. Quality is always the greatest money. So my harp within TNA is best quality TV programming, which obviously Big's big on. That's his number one focus. The integrity of the product, protecting the wrestlers so that the wrestlers feel invested in the product, so they feel somebody's also watching out for them, and trying to create a synergy of quality that, and then the old Field of Dreams adage, if you build it, they will come. I talked to somebody yesterday who said that, TNA is a brand that's, damaged beyond repair. I said, well, that's like saying the Chicago Cubs are a brand that's damaged beyond repair. I'm sorry, when you have a brand, especially a brand with the global reach of TNA, you have an opportunity. Quality will beget what it is meant to beget. If you run an A-level program for 2 years, you should draw. If you don't, then that's beyond the forces of quality programming. That's into some other thing that has to do with the culture or the way people consume their television or something like that. But if you can't draw off quality, you don't deserve to draw anyway.
Well, Billy, let's talk about that quality for a second. Because Billy, here's another point, and there's really nothing you can do about this, honestly, Billy. The quality of, and I always said this, and I knew there was nothing anybody could do about it. This is kind of like the hand you're dealt. The quality that you're talking about, Billy, is affected because of TNA finances. They're not a WWE. They don't have endless money. They never did. Everything is on a budget, and that's the way they have to operate to stay in business. Totally understandable. But Billy, here's the problem. Because of that, the quality does get affected. And by that, Billy, what I mean is when you're shooting 2 shows in one day, the quality of those shows is going to be affected, whether you want to realize it, whether you want to admit it. It's going to be affected. I dealt with that firsthand on a couple of avenues. First of all, talent's working more than once. So, they're not going to have their best performance. Second of all, they may get hurt in the first show. They can't be in the second show, for those reasons. Third of all, creatively, Billy, this is what I found too. When I was writing, Billy, some nights I had to do 30 pre-tapes, to cover 2 shows. Billy, I got every one of them done. What I found out when I was consulting was we would write the show with X amount of pre-tapes. They would come back, not have some of those pre-tapes because they said we didn't have the time to do them. Okay. That is a problem, Billy, that TNA is going to be plagued with that does affect the quality. How can that be, how can that be addressed if it can even be addressed at all? Because that's all dollars and cents.
Good questions, good points to make. I would go with an analogy you'd easily understand, which is the Moneyball analogy. Billy Beane in Oakland needed to figure out how to run a consistent, high-quality winning team within the constraints of the budget he had to work with. And I would say it's the same thing. I think limitation begets creativity. So can we maximize the use of the talent that we have? Can we make them feel invested in our product in a way that they wouldn't feel invested in somebody else's company? Is there a greater upside? And I'll tell you a conversation I had with one of the top wrestlers in TNA who's a younger person. I said, the great thing about your situation here is there's no one going to stop you going to the top. This company needs you, literally needs you to go to the top. We are on your back. So trust me, I'm with you. I want you to go as far as you can go. That inspires me in a way that registers with me in the same way that it did when I was a kid and I had no money and I had no contacts and I knew no one. And they said, you can't make it. You can't do it. How did I build literally $1 billion brand from nothing? I did it with creativity. I did it by working hard. And I did it by being a little cooler and a little smarter than the next guy. So what TNA might lack in a particular production value or the ability to run live week to week to tweak the program. We just have to make up for in creativity. Now, if we can do that consistently and rebuild the brand up to a certain level, then you'll start to see some energy there and some flexibility there. In essence, the business should follow behind. That's been my experience in the entertainment business. Maybe I'm a little bit wide-eyed in that, but that's all I can go with, because at the end of the day, I can't look at it as the glass half empty, because I don't think that's what really wrestling's about. Some of the greatest stuff I ever saw as a kid was shot in TV studios between top talent. You know, a guy with a handheld microphone, the audio's terrible, the picture quality's terrible. I bought the angle because it was Dick the Bruiser or whatever. And I'm sorry, if you put a Kurt Angle in that position, he should be able to get through because he's one of the best ever. And you just have to believe that. And if you don't, then what are you doing?
Yeah. Okay, Billy, let me ask you this. So now, you know, you've had your toe in the water at TNA, you know, for about a month. And I mean, I would obviously there's got to be a, you know, sit back and watch and observe and get a feel for what needs to be done. So having observed and now being a part of creative meetings, seeing the product, you know, we got a huge move to Wednesday nights tonight. We're going to talk about that huge, but I'm here to put TNA over. All my friends work at TNA, Billy. I consider you a friend, and I need you to hook us up at Red Rocks. So I especially got to put you over. But Billy, when you look at this from a creative standpoint, now that you've seen the scenery, what is the first thing Billy Corgan needs to do? From a creative standpoint, what is the first thing we need to do here?
Well, I would take one step back in that, and this also goes to the budget issues you've talked about. We've got to get younger, and we've got to develop talent. We've got to develop TNA branded stars from the bottom up. And I think to the victor go the spoils. And in that case, if we can build our own stars, we'll start to get some of that stardust around the promotion that it needs. So that would be my first move. And unfortunately, we're a little behind on this, but I was hoping to announce some stuff we're going to do in regard to finding talent. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about that soon. That to me is the first step. Second, and it's an adjunct to what I was saying, I think the program has to get younger. And that's not to diminish the contributions of anybody on the roster who's got time in the business. They deserve their spots and they belong there. But at the end of the day, you have to draw in youth culture with those characters, images, faces that they can relate to vis-a-vis their own generation, even if they only perceive it as a youth movement. You know, the tension of the youth pushing against the old. Those are good stories to tell. And I just think the program needs to get younger. And I think we have people in the company right now that, particularly somebody like Bram, obviously Ethan Carter getting a big push. Those are people that the program needs to be built around. Trust me, when you're talking about a Kurt Angle doesn't need to be positioned anywhere because Kurt Angle is like the granite in the middle of the promotion. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to worry about Kurt Angle because Kurt Angle knows what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at it if I was a veteran. Somebody like Kurt Spotted Secure, he's a literally walking legend through the locker room. That's all you need. That's all you need to know. What do you want to do? And we'll work it together. Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic opportunity to work with someone of Kurt's talent. But at the end of the day, people need to see the program moving in a particular direction, a certain spontaneity. And, you know, when you go back to the Attitude Era, what was it about? It was about the emergence of this new generation of stars, which, by the way, made everybody more money. The young guys and the old guys. Yeah. How much more money did you put in Hulk's pocket, you know, because of what was going on with the youth movements? Mm-hmm. You know, that's exactly how the business is supposed to work. And as I've said a couple of times publicly, at the end of the day, I'm of the philosophy that a 25-year-old man should beat a 35-year-old man 2 out of 3 times because he's 10 years younger. He's a physical specimen against the aged veteran who's got wisdom in his pocket. But at the end of the day, where in any other sport does that not work, that the 25-year-old doesn't beat the 35-year-old? Even Michael Jordan at some point had to retire. You know, there's a point there where the fans have to believe that their generation of stars is the one moving forward, which in many ways is the excitement behind Ring of Honor. People look at Ring of Honor and say, this is the next generation of stars. And as they see the success of someone like Kevin Owens, used to be Steen, they see that as coming from their generation's ground up, just like Nirvana came from the ground up. It's that same sort of youth movement that excites people and gets people who use social media most to engage.
I think that, Billy, I think those are great insights. And listen, I'm going to get into little sticky water here because I'm going to start talking about the media a little bit. Okay. And Billy, here's the first thing I have to talk about, because you want to talk about somebody who kind of just literally took their own foot and shoved it all the way down their throat, ankle, knee, thigh. And I'm talking about Mark Madden. And I'm sure you read this. Now, let me first say this, Billy. Mark Madden and I go back. I guess you could say Mark Madden and I are friends. Mark Madden has taken his pop shots at me over the years, and I've let Mark Madden know I didn't appreciate that. There's been some kind of a makeup, session since then. But I got to tell you, Billy, I read his article on this site, about a week ago, and it was all about Billy, and he kind of took a million shots at Billy Corgan. And I'm reading this thing, and as I'm reading it, it is so evident to me what the problem with his philosophy is. And when you did one of your early interviews, Billy, you talked about perhaps having a transgender character on the show. And, when you said that, I mean, obviously that caught my attention. When Madden was writing his article, he used that reference. And basically what Madden was trying to say is, that's not what fans want. And then Madden basically said, just because you're a genius and an iconic in the music world doesn't mean you know anything about wrestling. So I looked at all this and a couple of things I'm looking at. First of all, when Mark Madden says people won't care about a transgender character, well, he's probably talking about wrestling people who won't care about any character other than them being wrestlers and having 5-star matches. Now, he was totally proven wrong with the outing of Caitlyn this week, who grew a Twitter account faster than the president of the United States, Obama, had 1 million followers in God knows how long. Billy, I am so intrigued by this Caitlyn Jenner. I'm waiting for the next pictures. I'm waiting for the next comment, as is the rest of the world. Bruce Jenner did a couple of specials within Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Inventing Bruce or something Bruce. The ratings went through the roof. He's doing a 6-part miniseries for them that everybody and their mother will watch. Everybody and their mother has watched the Diane Sawyer interview. And the fact that, well, Billy Corgan might know something about music and entertainment, but what does he know about wrestling? That's the problem. And when I do my research and I go back to the early days of wrestling, wrestling developed as a form of entertainment in circus sideshows, at carnivals. It was entertainment. It was always entertainment. And that's why I think you're right on with what you want to do. But man, you're going to keep getting punched in the face and punched in the face and punched in the face. And Billy, I've been fighting this fight for 16 years and I'm worn out, bro. I'm punched out. Talk to me with the people like Madden and the people of that mindset and the, just the wrestling purist. Billy, how are you going to deal with that?
Well, that's a lot to tackle there. First off, I don't know Mark, never met him, not that I know of. Obviously entitled to his opinion. I don't think his opinion, though, in this regard is informed because he doesn't know me. And I would look to someone like JR who does know me, or someone like you who knows me. and understands that I approach my musical life and career from a slightly different perspective than people of my ilk. So that's all I can say in my defense. The road behind me is littered with the Mark Maddens of the world who took shots at me, and I just keep going. That's all I can say. As far as what you're talking about, this let's call it the old wrestling mind or something like that. Tradition is fine. I love tradition. I can appreciate why a Mark Madden or a Smart Mark fan doesn't want the social issues of today or tomorrow intertwined with what they see as their entertainment brand. And there will always be an entertainment brand that they can choose that will satisfy that. If you just want pure wrestling, well, there are promotions out in the world who offer that and offer it great. I mean, I'm a fan of those things. I've been to shows, all good. I mean, there's no problem there. But history, particularly history as it relates to wrestling and television, shows that the highest ratings are tied into story. That you could not dispute this as fact. The highest ratings are always tied into the greatest angles. And what's an angle? It's a story. You stole my girlfriend, or Elizabeth and Macho Man, or whatever. Okay, so what does that say to us in an empirical way? That says that the general fan only shows up when they're interested in something that speaks to them. Just like my general fans only show up when I do something that's interesting to them. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, which is what you've been saying nonstop for over a decade.
Billy, I gotta tell Billy, I'm worn out, bro. I'm telling you, Billy, I can't. I don't like. Billy, that's why I'm so. You have no idea how I'm so rooting for Billy Corgan. You have no idea, Billy. I'm worn out. I can't even go to Twitter anymore. I can't go to Facebook anymore. I'm worn out. Hey, Billy, can I put you on the spot about one thing?
Sure.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give Caitlyn?
What's that?
What do you give Caitlyn Jenner on a scale of 1 to 10?
In terms of hot or not?
Yeah. What do you, Billy?
Are you saying hot or not?
Yeah. 8, 7.
I go 7.
Wow. Okay, that's generous. That's
athletic.
All right, Billy. Now we got to get into some ugliness. Okay, and not between you and me. I think we're on the same page when it comes to this. A report comes out from Dave Meltzer that I am absolutely irate over. And I'll tell you why. Because to me, I can't, Billy, maybe it's me and maybe it's you. To me, wrestling will always be entertainment. We're here to entertain the fans. We're here to have fun. You can go back to my Vicious Vincent's World of Wrestling in 1991 to see I was always about entertainment. Okay? Dave Meltzer releases, I guess, a news story, where sources are quoted, nameless, faceless people, and literally, emails from within Destination America are literally, put out there and talked about. Now, my thought, Billy, immediately goes to the men and women that are working for TNA. They're reading these reports like everybody else. Billy, we know when it comes to paranoia, there is no animal like the professional wrestler. So you've got these reports. You've got the paranoia of the wrestler. There's no mention of who the sources were, who said this, how did we get this email, how do we know this is accurate. It is just put out there. Billy, people can say whatever they want about me. I went to school for journalism. I have a degree in journalism. I take journalism very, very seriously. When stuff like this is put out there, that's going to affect people's lives and an entire company, and you're not claiming sources, you're not claiming how we got this information, you're turning an entire company of human beings upside down. To me, that's irresponsible. That is my feeling and my opinion. I have an issue with that, and I'm going to speak out about it. How did you feel, Billy? What was your knee-jerk reaction when you read that report for the first time like everybody else?
I had the exact same reaction. I thought it was highly irresponsible, particularly in regard to, in essence, putting TNA in a corner that they can't fight out of. Hanging on the veracity of whether or not this reported memo is true isn't really the point. Let's back up for 1 second. Number one, Dave Meltzer's article that started all this started out with him theorizing of who was going to be the new number 2 company in America. Now, if that doesn't reveal a particular bias against the company that I work for, I don't know what does. Secondarily, it was a little too quick to ring the death bell on the promotion, which, by the way, is on in 120 or 121 countries. Now, he's since sort of backpedaled off that and said, I love people at TNA and I have friends there and I don't want anyone to lose their job. So what I would say that would be different, and let's talk about it from the standpoint of journalism. If he wanted to name an unnamed source, okay, fine. But I didn't feel he put that article in the proper context so that people could understand that if Destination America as a network was moving in this direction, that in essence, not putting all the other pieces around it that would create it in the context of realistic business in the world of entertainment. Destination America's parent company is Discovery. That's a big corporate entity. These decisions are not made just because somebody writes a memo. I've been in situations at record labels where somebody lower wants to get rid of me, but somebody up top says, no, he makes us too much money. No one has argued yet that TNA's ratings are in the tank for Destination America. The ratings are actually very solid to strong, depending on who you ask, and actually went up after all this BS with everyone running headlines saying TNA is canceled. Canceled means canceled means no longer appearing on television. How is it that we're not only appearing on television, but we've just been moved to a better night? Okay, here comes the ROH news and all that other stuff. Meltzer starts to backpedal a little bit off his story. Now who knows what's going to happen? That's why I called it irresponsible. He didn't understand all the dynamics. I understood the dynamics slightly better than he did because I have some inside information. Right. Okay, and on top of me, Big and Dixie Carter know even more. Nothing they were indicating to me, nor to the talent in the company, said we had anything to worry about today or tomorrow. Now, if you want to speculate what may happen to a wrestling company on television 90 to 120 to 6 months down the road, well, you could say everybody's in that position, depending on their draw, depending on their contract. So it was kind of like throwing out this phantom chimera, this boogeyman, okay, without anything real behind it. And oh, by the way, we're still running a television program. So what are we supposed to do? How were we supposed to respond? And obviously there was a lot of heat on Destination America for not properly responding. And you can understand the talent call that I was on where people were expressing great frustration that we weren't being backed up by our parent network.
Yeah. Billy, that's the thing. Listen, I'm an entertainment guy. I'm sorry. I'm not the guy that's going to put news out there so more people watch my show. I'm just not that guy. I'm much more interested in entertaining people. So Billy, I've not made calls to people I know inside of TNA. What's going on there? Honestly, because a couple of things. Number one, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Of course, I care about the people that work there, but also, listen, when Dixie Carter wants to say something, Dixie Carter is going to say something. I'm not going to chase this story, to literally affect people's lives, on the negative side inside of TNA. When there's a story there to be told, people at TNA are going to tell the story. But the thing that drives me nuts is, Billy, I can't tell you how many times on my show, I use the phrase in my opinion. In my opinion, I make that clear. You never read the wrestling journal. You never see two things. Rumor has it, or in my opinion. You never see any one of those two things. Everything is stated as fact. Immediately on the heels of that report, Meltzer then goes on to the next report is about the conference call between Dixie and the wrestlers. And his first sentence is, the wrestlers on the call felt this way. So now I'm sitting back as a journalist and I'm saying two things. Unless you were on that call yourself, or you spoke to every single wrestler on the call, you're reporting based on what maybe one or two wrestlers told you, and those one or two wrestlers are putting their spin on it, how they perceive the call to be. And, you know, and I pointed all that out to people, you know, the wrestlers on the call felt this way. It just, Billy, it drives me crazy. But here's the sad thing, man. The wrestling fans in the industry, for whatever reason, Billy, they read that stuff and they take it as gospel. And it's almost like, you know what? A Dixie doesn't need to react. And maybe to some point, a Destination America doesn't need to react. But Billy, they're put in a position where now they're forced to react. How else does TNA handle a situation like that?
Well, that's my point, and that's why I think the right word for this is irresponsible. As somebody who's a learned and obviously Meltzer's a historian, and I also want to remind people this is not personal between he and I like Dave Meltzer just fine, but it's very irresponsible to put a company of which he claims to have friends in a business position that they literally can't fight out from. That's why I used the word irresponsible. That was my reaction. It's like a bad angle, okay? Somebody did something that caused somebody to have to react. And no matter which way we react as a company, people are going to say, oh, there you go. For example, when I went back at Dave Meltzer, he characterized in one of his reports that I was one of Dixie's attack dogs, okay? As if Dixie Carter called me up and said, you better go after Dave Meltzer. I've had no such conversation. I am a free agent in TNA. I do what I want. They trust me to do what I need to do. I defended the company on my own terms with my own social capital because I thought what it was happening was wrong. So for Dave Meltzer to characterize me as a minion or a messenger boy is demeaning to me, who's been in the entertainment business for 30 years. I have 30 years experience dealing with people who are far, far more sinister and more powerful than the Dave Meltzers of the world. And that's not to demean Dave Meltzer. I have dealt with some of the biggest scumbags in the world. And I think I can call, BS when I see it. He stepped over the magic line and kind of got too invested in a story, which you can argue fairly is a big story. Okay, it's a big story if true, but the way it was characterized was irresponsible. And I don't care what anybody thinks of me or thinks of you about it, because you understand, like I do, that there's a human effect there that this thing caused. And by not framing the story properly, as someone who knows as much about the business as Dave Meltzer does, he basically put TNA in a position where we have to go into like a Texas death match to fight our way out of the corner. And thank God that the ratings this last week, after all that negative press and saying the show was canceled, actually went up. Now Dave's probably going to write a report and says, because of him, the ratings went up.
Yeah. Okay, Billy, listen. Me personally, first of all, bro, the minute the story broke, I knew, okay, there's got to be some truth to this. This can't totally be made up. But the minute the story broke, Destination America had just announced they're moving the show from Friday to Wednesday. you're not going to make a decision to obviously put the show on a better night if you've already made the decision to cancel it. That right there on the surface doesn't make any sense. So, Billy, I'm more concerned with what I read what Destination America says. I read what TNA says. I read what Joe Knopf, whatever it is, from Ring of Honor says. And my feeling is this, and I could be totally off, but my feeling is this, and that's why I think that the report created even a bigger issue for TNA, and I could be totally off base off this, but in his statement, Joe Knopf said clearly, we had an in at Destination America. He said that. Those were his words. That means to me, at some point in time, Joe Knopf and ROH contacted Destination America. Now, to me, you're not going to contact a Destination America that has Impact Wrestling on their network unless you think there is a problem or there is an issue. It's like, is Dixie going to call USA Network tomorrow out of the blue to try to get Impact on USA? Well, if she reads that WWE is having problems with USA, maybe. So I believe the phone call was made after the article went out. I also believe that Ring of Honor perhaps undercut TNA's price, to look more attractive to a Destination America. Because like you said, the ratings aren't the issue. Destination America have said, we're happy with the ratings TNA given us. It's a dollars and cents issue. I wouldn't doubt if Ring of Honor came in and literally gave them the programming for free for the next 6 months to show we can do almost just as good as at TNA and basically it'll cost you a lot less money. That's just my opinion. That's just what I feel based on the things that I've read. Can you comment any more concerning the situation with TNA, ROH, Destination America, or are you just not privileged or privy to say anything at this point?
Well, the one thing I can say is that there were reports that Dixie and Big were unaware of Ring of Honor's coming. That basically the company was caught flat-footed in that. That's not true. That's not true. There was an awareness of that situation long before that, and there's some other things I know that I can't talk about. But I think your read on it's interesting. I don't know anything more to add to that or subtract from that. But I would say in general terms, good for Ring of Honor to put their product out there, to want to be competitive, to want to get to the higher levels of access and availability. I can't understand all the business particulars, why we're on the same network, but that said, I like the pairing. I think a lot of fans who like Ring of Honor, if they give TNA a chance, will be very surprised where the program is at right at the moment. I think they'll like it more than they generally would think they would if you based on internet reports, although the internet reports have been getting better. So at the end of the day, I look at it as, it is what it is, and a competitive company, a strong company, especially with the roster TNA has, should be able to compete and should be able to thrive within a competitive environment. So to me, at the end of the day, what difference does it make if Ring of Honor was on another network an hour before and then it's coming in or whatever? However it all works out, at the end of the day, I think TNA will be totally fine. And part of the reason I think it's fine is because I'm part of the company. I think I will be there to help make those key decisions to steer the company into a 21st century frame of mind, which will include emerging technologies that are going to deliver professional wrestling in ways that you and I cannot even yet imagine. When you're talking about wireless streaming, schmeeming, everything that's coming down the road, where basically TV's moving to the internet. TNA, you're part of that history. There's lots of stuff in the archives. Who knows what those situations are going to engender in the future. So I don't think you count a company like that out with one wave just because a promotion's coming in and this is some back business with the network and stuff like that. I think it'll all work out just fine.
Billy, I don't know if you could answer this question or not, but I'm going to ask you because I think it's important. I really believe it's important because I know the wrestling fan, very lackadaisical, DVR things, watch it at a later time because there's so much product out there right now. And let's face it, Billy, none of it is really, must-see TV. I mean, it's really not. Whether I watch it tonight or next week, it's just not right now. But with that being said, Billy, because I want to, if there is a sense of urgency out there, I want the wrestling fan to understand that, because if there's a sense of urgency and they're wrestling fans, I believe they will come to the dance. If you're a wrestling fan, you have to come to the dance if there's a sense of urgency. And I don't know if you can comment on this, but does the future of TNA in any way, shape, or form depend on the success of a Wednesday night compared to a Friday night?
I don't know if I can speak to that specifically. I think at the end of the day, no matter where you are, you've got to draw. You see me in concert, you got to fill those seats. We're playing Red Rocks. We've got to fill those seats. Based on what you're asking for, your guarantee, based on what you draw. So at the end of the day, to me, it's all inside baseball. I like when Dixie told me about moving to Wednesdays, first thing out of my mouth is, I like it. I'd much rather be on Wednesday than Friday night. Here's the first thing I said. The wrestling week starts on Monday, in most people's eyes, unless there's a pay-per-view, obviously, starts on Monday with Raw. If you're a wrestling fan, that's the start of your wrestling week. I'd rather be in the middle of that wrestling week than at the end of the week when people's social media response and activity goes down on weekends because they're just getting into the stuff you do on weekends, like summer cookout and all that stuff. Social media activity is highest, Wednesday, Thursday, as the stories and the arc lines of the stories that are in the culture, whether it's Caitlyn Jenner or whatever, move through that week. They build steam through the week and you get into secondary and third tier stories. I like being in the middle of the week. I want to be in the middle of that conversation every week. Yeah,
Billy, me too. Billy, I was so disappointed. I'll be honest with you. First of all, of course, I was exuberant. TNA found the new home on Destination America. Obviously, because nobody knew what was going to happen after Spike. When Destination came out, and basically said, okay, they're going to be on Friday nights, I just about wanted to put my head through a wall. You just brought this company aboard. They have the potential now to really grow with you behind it. Why out of the chute would you put it on the worst night of the week? So obviously the switch to Wednesday nights, I was absolutely ecstatic for. Now, Billy, tonight is how many more shows are taped on Wednesday before we get into the new set of tapings?
The next live taping is at the end of June. Like around the 24th, I believe.
Okay, now, Billy, I would assume the product we're seeing now, you were involved in, you were part of the process, but, more or less feeling your way around the early days of Billy Corgan. When we go live on the next set of taping for Impact, is there going to be something? Maybe it's one moment, maybe it's a presentation, maybe it's a series of things. Will we see a different product, or will there be a different feel about the product once we get to the new set of tapings?
Well, I'm gonna counter you in this regard, because the first thing out of the chute tonight is something that I was the executive producer on. I didn't write the angle, but I was involved with the in-ring production. I was in Orlando for it. So I'm very proud of this first segment. I thought it was one of the best segments that we shot over the last set of tapings. So I'm really excited to see how this all turns out tonight and people's response to it. I didn't get to book as much in this last set of tapings because I came in on the very, very end of it. I'm much more involved in the booking with the stuff coming up, and I think people will start to see my influence in that. I'm really happy, and I'm saying this in all earnestness, I'm really happy with the team I get to work with. I know you're close to Matt, great guy. Dave, met before. Really wonderful people to work with, easy to work with, smart, know their wrestling. Come like you from a standpoint of how do we get people engaged in the product. Have a great respect and love for wrestling, but are not living in the past. And then on top of that, you got Big, who just says over and over again, let's make the best TV. Let's make the best TV. So far, I feel very supported. When my ideas are the best in the room, I win. And when I'm not, I don't have the best idea in the room, I'm more than willing to raise my hand and say, I like Matt's idea a lot better for this. This is where he's going is going to pay a much bigger dividend down the road. But I'm really happy to be part of that team. Very proud of it, actually, which in some ways would explain why I was so, and why people didn't understand my reaction to what happened with Meltzer's piece and some of the stuff that's come out afterwards. People don't understand. This is important to me. I'm putting my whole heart into it. I want this roster to succeed. I want this program to succeed. I'm lucky in that if it doesn't succeed, I can go back to my day job, but I'm giving up a lot of my time at home, a lot of my free time to be at the tapings, to be involved, to deal with the roster one-on-one where needed, because I really am excited by this possibility. And so I don't understand why people are surprised that I feel passionate about it. Mm-hmm. I'm not defending something that I don't believe in. I'm defending something that I think has a future. And if you don't think it has a future, what can I say to you that will convince you? I can't say that to you. I can't say to you that I have the same infrastructure as another company or I have the same history as another company. What I can say to you is this: we should be able to beat you in the in-ring product, and we should be able to beat you in the world of ideas. And if we can gain momentum in those regards, I think TNA will be just fine into the future.
Bill, I'm going to ask you two more questions, and I'm going to let you go because, I mean, you've been great answering everything, but I want to ask you two more questions. And, Billy, I know this firsthand. As I said, I learned so much about you in spending, an hour with you with my kids. I learned so much about you. And I'm asking you this question, Billy, to pass along to other people out there. Billy, you're a rock star. Listen, you've fulfilled two of my dreams I've never been able to fulfill. Number one, Billy, I want to always be a rock star. Billy, I want to perform in front of thousands of people. Number two, Billy, I always wanted to have long hair. I can never grow my long hair. It gets to the poofy stage, Billy, and then I cut it all off. You had the beautiful long hair on SNL, the whole 9 yards. Okay, Bill? So I live vicariously through you. But, Bill, and this is a dead serious question. Billy, I try to explain this to people, and I tell people on the outside, you don't know egos until you meet professional wrestlers. As a matter of fact, you wouldn't even believe such egos existed unless you literally met professional wrestlers. Billy, I have to ask you this, and I'm not saying this to put you over or to kiss up to you or nothing like that. How can you be a huge rock star worth millions and millions of dollars and put an ego in check and not have an ego?
Well, I have an ego. It's just, I think it's where it goes. Like, for example, in talking about this first segment from the show tonight, I'm very proud of the work that we did. I'm very proud of the way this segment turned out. If that gives me an ego, then that's fine. As far as dealing with other talent, I respect people who are great at what they do. For me, it's the easiest thing in the world to talk to someone who's talented. It's the easiest thing in the world because they have a vision and they know who they are on some level. After that, it's really just can you find business to do together?
Yeah. Now, Bill, let me ask you this last question because I know better than anybody, and you know this too. I don't need to tell you this. I mean, what you're doing now, consumes you. It is, people have no idea, Billy, what it is to write a weekly television show. I am so sick and tired of hearing people. That's why, like, Billy, with what's going on creatively with the WWE, I don't get upset. I never say an idea is good or bad. I get upset when I don't see the effort put into the product. That's when I get upset. But good ideas, bad ideas, nobody has any idea to write a show a week. It consumes you. it's going to consume you. But Billy, you're consumed with this day job. And in a month, after you give me my comp tickets for me and my kids, you're going to be in a sold out Red Rocks with Marilyn Manson, by the way, doing your night job. Billy, if TNA, and I believe this, Billy, I believe Big Dixie, listen to me. If we listen to this man, I'm telling you, give him his time. We'll roll this thing. This thing will roll. But Billy, here's my question to you. When this thing now starts to roll, how are we going to be, executive producer, writer of a successful television show by day, rock star by night? How do we do that?
Well, the lucky thing is that I've had, basically 25 years, on the road, maybe more now. I can't even remember. And I haven't had a lot of time to spend at home to raise a family, to do the things that most people take for granted, on a weekend or something. So the way I look at TNA, if the situation can continue to grow, I would be able to put more of my time into TNA and then pick my spots with my musical life and then kind of build a different life for myself at home. That's what's so intriguing for me about the opportunity personally, because I do think there's an upside there. I don't think it's just something I'm doing as some sort of weird hobby. I do want to grow in the business, and I intend to. So, hopefully there's enough success there that I'll be able to say, I can set things aside with the band here and there, so that I don't feel beholden to it. And just like anything, sometimes you need to go away for a while to be appreciated. Sometimes you need to go away for a while for people to remember that they want to see you again. I've been on the road consistently for about the past 9 years with very little break. And at some point, the audience just says, "Oh, I'll just see him next time," and all that. It's like sometimes it's just like a good wrestler. You got to go away for a little while to get your heat back up.
Billy, are you? Just a quick question: Are you and Manson going to play together at any point during the show?
Yeah, we're going to do probably a couple songs at the end. One song we're going to do, actually, it has a wrestling tie. We're going to do "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Oh my gosh, that should be a sight to see, huh?
He's singing that one. We're doing that in honor of Captain Lou and Cindy.
Billy, I want to ask you this now. Wednesday nights starts tonight, Impact Wrestling. This is what it's all about. But Billy, this is very important. I want to make this clear because I want to understand this. I know in today's programming, DVR plays a big deal. The Spike executives used to tell me, as did Dixie when we were on Spike, she used to tell me, the Spike executives used to tell me that they didn't care about the DVR numbers. The DVR numbers were secondary. They cared about who was watching that product firsthand. So that's why I'm asking you the question. Is it important that they watch the show at 9 o'clock? Does it make a difference to TNA as opposed to watching it later on DVR?
I can't speak to it business-wise, but I can speak to it angle-wise, which is if you're really engaged with the television product, you can't wait to watch it because you don't want to hear it from somebody else. You don't want your friend texting you saying, "Oh, I can't believe they put so-and-so over instead of this other thing." You want to have it happen in real time. That's not hype to get you to watch the show. I just think that says when you're engaged, you want to be there. And so it's our job to make television product that is must-see, to borrow from another network. And I think it's that simple.
Okay, and so Billy, the Wednesday night starts TNA tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Correct time. The first segment, I'm not even going to ask you what the first segment is, but I want everybody to be clear of this. The first segment had Billy's fingerprints on it. He's very proud of this. We're going to have to watch this. I'm going to have to watch this, get ready to critique this tomorrow morning. But listen, I'm going to be honest with my audience. I'm going to critique it knowing Red Rocks is July 13th, and my kids are dependent on me for tickets. Billy, I'm calling a spade a spade. I want everybody to know that. But, Billy, I'm excited, bro. And listen, I'm telling you, They got the right guy for the right job. I could not give you any more my endorsement. Not that it means anything, but I am absolutely ecstatic that you're in that position with TNA right now.
Thank you, Vince. Your endorsement means a lot to me, and I'm lucky in that I can always reach out to you as a resource, and that's a great testament to your friendship. Thank you.
Billy, do you want to say anything about the tour? Do you want to throw anything? Because I know you're going to be doing it all summer long. Do you want to mention that at all?
Well, we're starting in about 10 days. We're doing a 2-week acoustic tour. That's already all sold out. The Manson tour, it's Manson and then Pumpkins are headlining. That's at all those big, summer places. So, there's always tickets available there because they expand into lawns and all that type of stuff. So, of course, come out and see that. It's a rare pairing. It's a very powerful night, and I think getting us to see us perform together would be a lot of fun, too.
Well, Billy, I want to thank you so much for your honesty during this interview. You dodged no question. You answered everything I had to ask. Again, I want to thank you personally for what you've done for my own kids. I'll never forget that. And Billy, I'm ecstatic to start watching tonight, Wednesday night, Impact, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Billy, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Vince, and thanks, everybody, for listening.
Okay, everybody, we'll see you right here next week.
The preceding presentation was brought to you by the Realm Network.